Welcome and good morning to my live stream. This live stream is going to cover, of course, the Canon announcements, the official announcements and release of a few lenses that they've got in line on their mirrorless lineup, as well as the much anticipated Canon R5 and the Canon R6. If I sound a little tired this morning, I am so tired. I was like setting up this live stream for last night, late last night, while listening to like Hamilton music and all nice and cheery. But it was close to midnight while I was doing that, and now I'm woke up and had my cup of coffee already. I hope you got your cup of coffee ready too if you're live. And thank you for joining me. But I'm just eagerly anticipating this Canon announcement. I've muted the audio from the actual announcement. If I don't unmute it, if you're watching, please let me know because I definitely want to make sure you guys can hear it as well. But this is going to be a live reaction to everything that they announce. Now, initially, usually when it comes to like Canon announcements and reactions or announcements in general, I'm anticipating something new and exciting and looking forward to really how it's going to turn out. But this morning seems a little different, especially with the R5 and R6. Well, A, it's so early and I'm used to having announcements a little bit later in the day. But the other thing too is that there have been so many leaks on the Canon R5 and Canon R6 that it's almost like, well, what else do you have to say? Let's go over a couple of things that we already know. So for these cameras, we've already been told everything from a video spec perspective, which is what I really care about anyway. From the resolutions, the frames per second that they can film, the different resolutions, the recording types, the recording media, and even when it comes to pictures, we already know that they can shoot like 12 frames per second mechanical, 20 uh, non-mechanical, digital. I'm already nervous. It's too early in the morning. But in other words, we're really much anticipating not only the prices, which the prices also leaked as well. Spoiler on that, so cover your ears or click off and on if you don't want to know what the spoilers, any spoilers on the price. But the price for the Canon R5 has been leaked to be $38.99, and that's just camera body only, and the R6 to be $24.99. So that's actually pretty much right on target with like a sweet spot of what the prices were expected to be, except for me. I did out a couple of videos where I was like, this price is going to be like $6,000 plus or minus, right? But closer to $6,000 for the Canon R5. But it seems that Canon's like, no, this is going to be our price points, and it's going to be like what they said it was going to be. Like R5 is going to be like the continuation of the 5 series, and the R6 is essentially a continuation of the 6 series of cameras. The previous DSLR versions of like the 5 series are like the 5D series. So 5D Mark 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the 6D, you had 2 versions of the 6D. So 6D Mark 2 and 6D Mark 1. Now you have the R6 replacing that. But these replacements are not just replacements of that style. They're complete and total transformations of those series. So let's go a little bit back in the history of that before we continue on with this. So the 5D series was a revolutionary series for Canon. The 5D, the original 5D, was a nice professional style camera that took pictures, had a good resolution, and did a great job. But it was really the 5D Mark II that really shot Canon through the roof when they decided to include 1080p recording or HD recording inside the camera. So to have it record video was something that was revolutionary to the industry. And it was something that not only was exciting, but pretty much changed the game for video creation and people wanting to have an affordable camera to shoot professional looking videos. The 5 series really kind of changed the game for almost all companies. So that was interesting. And then when 5D Mark III came out, it wasn't a revolution, but kind of an evolution. So it wasn't exciting as the original 5D, and other camera manufacturers were coming out with their own DSLRs that can actually record video. But Canon was the leader in that. And then when the 5D Mark III came out, it was like a, evolution. It had a few better features, and, people liked it. But then when the 5D Mark IV came out, everyone was hoping for another evolution, from evolution to revolution. And you didn't get the revolution. What you got was, you got the 5D Mark IV as one of Canon's disappointing upgrades, to put it in a kind perspective. Like the upgrade itself was really good for Canon, in the sense that they included dual pixel autofocus in the 5D. They included 4K recording, even though it was MJPEG, and they upped the other features of HD recording just a little bit, so you can record up to 60 frames per second in 1080p and up to 120 frames per second in 720p, which was new for Canon, but it was far behind the competition, because a lot of competition was already releasing 1080p at 120 frames per second and 4K, at least using the full sensor width, while Canon was sticking to cropping in, and then nobody was using the MJPEG codec. So that was a bit of a kind of a bump in the road in Canon, and Canon had quite a few bump in the roads with camera releases subsequent to that. So then you have the 60. Now, talking about the 60, which I have somewhere over there in like the studio over here, but the 60 in itself was Canon's kind of idea to enter the full frame market at a much cheaper cost. At the time of release, it was small, and it was one of, if not the cheapest full frame DSLR that you can pick up to actually enter the market of full frame DSLRs, which is what Canon wanted to do. And that was actually my first full frame DSLR, first full frame camera at all. So when I picked it up, I was very impressed with what Canon can do. And the video specs were similar to the 5D Mark III, where it had 1080p recording at 30 frames per second. The photography features on that were okay. It was a 20 megapixel sensor, and it was a nice little camera body, so I did appreciate that. But then, of course, when its sequel came out, the 6D Mark II, at the time that it came out, it was barely an evolution, and certainly not a revolution. It did have a flip screen, but they still kept it at 1080p, no 4K, and it bumped the frames per second in filming from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second, and they added dual pixel autofocus, which was great, but it was like meh. At that point, you had so many different other manufacturers offering lineups at that price point that were better when it came to anything video wise. But one thing that Canon didn't fail too badly on, if at all, was really the reliability of their cameras, and the fact that they've actually stayed in professionals' hands for longer periods of time than expected. So, for example, I'm using the 5D Mark IV right now. So this camera is the last DSLR in the 5D series before being replaced by the R5. So the 5D Mark IV was, like I said before, its video specs were not impressive. However, the 5D is probably one of my favorite cameras to use, and I've got a ton of cameras from, not a ton, but enough for video specific purposes. I've got the GH5, two Samsung NX1s, I've got the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, and what else do I have? That's just to name a few. But the 5D is the one that is just, I rely on when it comes to autofocus. I rely on when it comes to video features. And right now in this stream, I have the settings at 4K. So it lasts you a while. And even though it's pretty good, right now Canon looks like they're about to announce another evolution in camera features when it comes to the R5 and R6, replacing the 5D Mark IV and the 6D Mark II, which is exciting. I mean, it's about time that Canon come out with something this exciting. Now, in the past, I did a video, and a couple of videos ago, I did a video that spoke about how Canon was pretty much sleeping when it came to like 4K features, like full frame 4K features, and a couple of features like inside a camera body. But that when they actually release a camera that's full frame 4K with a flip screen and in-body image stabilization, the world would be watching. And we finally reached that date, and I think that's today. So I'm excited from that perspective. But moving on, now that we've got the R5 and R6 ready to be fully launched in a product launch, and on a few great RF lenses that are going to be announced today, so which we'll see that, and then the price points of those have been leaked as well. What you've got is I almost lost my train of thought there. What you've got with these specs are pretty much next level. Now Canon went from behind to in front of everybody. So let's go over a couple of specs that are already confirmed in the R5. Thank you, Cam Spotter. It's going to be a shocking announcement. I agree with that. Thanks for joining me. So R5, here's what I know and what I've got in my head already. Besides the prices, which I've just mentioned, and if you don't want no spoilers, then mute your audio right now. I'm about to give you a few, at least, leaked spoilers, and a lot of them have been confirmed from Canon themselves. So on the R5, from a video perspective, you've got 8K RAW, 30 frames per second, full frame, no sensor cropping. So that's like the highest video spec. But besides that, you've also got 8K at 10-bit 422 colors. So, and you could record that with a compressed recording method. I'm thinking that they're going to do H.265. So, and I think that was released too. So two recording methods in 8K. So 8K RAW and 8K with that compressed codec, HEVC codec, which is high quality, highly compressed, but very good codec. It's actually a codec that was around when the Samsung NX1 was released, and at that point, which was in like 2015, it was way ahead of its time and no one could edit on it and everyone was complaining. And now all camera manufacturers are embracing it. And when I record a video on the Samsung NX1 off that codec, I have no trouble editing. Too bad they were too ahead of their time. And then going down from there from a resolution standpoint, in 4K, the camera will do up to 120 frames per second. Now there's no confirmation that you could record RAW in 4K. I would wish that it could, but I have no confirmation that it will. When I had the 1DX Mark III in my hands, the RAW recording was only in 5.5K. You couldn't select RAW recording in any lower resolution. So that was a shame. I really thought that that camera could be opened up to a lot more possibilities if you could record RAW at lower resolutions. And I'm not sure if they'll do it at this standpoint when it comes to the lower resolutions, because the processor not only has to, it's downsampling to record less of a resolution, but then you have to take the full width of the sensor, compress it down to 4K, and then do a RAW frame rate. I don't know if they're going to do that, and that's something that I don't know if they're even going to announce here, but that would be nice if it could. So 4K up to 120 frames per second, you'll record in that HEVC codec, as I mentioned as well, and you'll still have 10-bit 422. You won't have, unlike, for example, other camera bodies where if you recorded 4K, like the M50, it used a contrast detect autofocus. They won't do that here. You're going to have dual pixel autofocus active even at 120 frames per second, which is great. when using autofocus in and recording slow-mo, that to me that's so important, because since you're recording much more frames in a shorter amount of time, the more frames are out of focus, the more wasted footage you have. So to have autofocus available is so important. That's why when it came to slow motion, 99% of the time I use my Samsung NX1 because that had slow motion. And I keep pushing the Samsung NX1, but it honestly had good features. So, and then from that, the one thing that I don't know too much, so 4K 120 frames per second HEVC codec. We do know that. I don't know if it has RAW, but I hope it does. But then at 1080, what is the frames per second? How fast will it go? Will it go up to 120 frames per second as well? I don't know. What will be the frame rates? Will they include 24 frames per second? Now that's been something that's been talked about and discussed for a while when it comes to Canon. Like, for example, when the 1DX Mark III came out, and I don't think that they've upgraded it or done a firmware upgrade yet, is that they left out 24 frames per second in 1080. And that in itself was pretty frustrating, because you need 1080. You need full features in 1080, because 1080 is commonly used for a lot of creators. Myself personally, I almost record everything in 4K. But there's so many creators, so many video specific creators, and those that do weddings and do long form video recording, where recording everything in 4K would be way too much data. So to have the ability to record in 1080 when they're going to output in 1080 and their clients don't expect anything but 1080, or in YouTube where most people are watching off their phone, why record in 4K? Again, that's my personal opinion, is you record everything in 4K. You want to have all possibilities covered. But there are some that are like, no, that's a little too much. So to not have 24p, which is a standard when it comes to creators, they want 24p. They want that buttery smooth filmic look, which is traditionally 24 frames per second. And sure, including 30 and 60 helps. I mean, if you're like a streamer that does like gaming videos or something like that, and you want as smooth possible footage, then 60 frames per second is fine, and 30 frames per second is fine as well. But having a 24p is important as well, and Canon realized that. That's why they released an update for their, for example, RP that only had 30 frames per second in 1080. Canon was like, okay, sorry, we'll put 24 in there. So let's hope that they also include 24 frames per second in 1080. But if they haven't fixed the 1DX Mark III yet, I don't know if they're going to do that with the R5. So that's something to pay attention to. But again, I don't know if they're going to release it at this launch. So those are the R5 specs. A few camera specs. It's going to do, like I said before, 12 frames per second mechanical, and 20 frames per second electronic, when it comes to taking photos. And I don't know, perhaps you guys can clue me in if you know anything, but I don't know if they actually released the specs on the resolution of the sensor. Is it a 45 megapixel sensor? I mean, that's been rumored for a while. I would think that, yeah, it's probably going to be at or around 45 megapixels. But I haven't seen anything that actually confirmed 45 megapixels, like officially, or like in Canon rumors. It's been like talked about, but it's not really something that's been like, okay, it's definitely 45 megapixels. So that I'm curious about. Now moving on to the R5. Well, let's R5. I was just talking about the R5. R6. This is what you get when you get live. Okay, so the R6, that camera is also very interesting. I mean, if you can't get the R5 because you think it's a little overpriced, which I think for its features, there's no reason to pick up a 1DX Mark III if you're into video. If you're into photos, then I could see, but if you're into video, then why, It'll be interesting to see what the buffer rate is on the R5, because if it's comparable to the 1DX Mark III, it's almost a mystery as to why you'd pick up the 1DX Mark III. Besides the fact that it has its faster card slots, two faster card slots, um, but with a really fast UHS-2 SD card and a CFast card in the R5, you can probably compete pretty well with the 1DX Mark III at a much more affordable price. But let's talk about the R6. The R6 featuring two camera slots, two UHS-2 camera slots, which I mean, the 6D only had one camera slot, and that's why I was always a little nervous to take it on a photography shoot. But the R6 is going to have two camera slots. The R6 video features are impressive. It's going to be full frame 4K at 60 frames per second, and then 1080p at 120 frames per second. So that is like video features that compare to, for example, the 1DX Mark II, except this camera won't have the archaic codec that the 1DX Mark II had with the MJPEG codec. This camera will use a nice compression. This camera will have 10-bit 422 color, and this camera, let's see, does full frame 4K recording, where the 1DX Mark II cropped in a little bit. So there's no reason to pick up 1DX Mark II or the 1DX Mark III thanks to these two much more affordable, cheaper cameras. Now, the R6 was also rumored to have a 20 megapixel sensor. So a lot of people have speculated, well, 20 megapixel sensor and all of these recording formats, I think they're going to use the 1DX Mark III sensor in the R6. Perhaps. Doesn't seem out of it. It's also doing 12 frames per second mechanical and 20 frames per second electronic frames per second when it comes to taking pictures. So it seems like, yeah, realistic. We don't know what processors they have in here or the R5, but it seems like realistic that, okay, you're going to have a pretty beefy sensor here that almost makes a 1DX Mark III irrelevant. It's almost like, Canon, what are you doing? Why are you just giving up on your DSLRs? That's what it seems like. It's almost like, you know what? Screw this. We're going to replace the R5 and R6. I mean, we're going to place the 5D and 6D with two beefy, powerful cameras competitively priced, which is impressive. And then it begs to ask the question, what would the R1 be like if they release an R1? And an R1, in my mind, would be the replacement to the 1DX. And I would imagine that wouldn't happen for a couple of years, because the 1DX Mark III just came out in 2020. So you probably have to wait till like 2024 or 2023 before the 1DX Mark III is replaced, which seems about right. You need much more of the industry to move towards mirrorless. I mean, almost everyone is ditching their DSLR, but Canon, I think, played this intelligently, where they were like, okay, let's start off with a couple of trial runs, lower end cameras, with the Canon EOS R and the EOS RP. That's kind of like their trial, and using like previous DSLR sensors of the 5D and the 6D. Then they're like, and Canon even said it themselves, this is not replacing the 5D. Trust me, this is not replacing. And I guess this means that they were right, because the R5 and the R6, those sound more like replacements, powerful next level replacements. But they kept these launches kind of like, okay, we're coming out with all the soldiers first before we really break out the big guns with the R1. And the R1 won't happen until more of, if not all of the industry is really moving towards that, because you want your professional photographers and videographers, but mostly professional photographers, to get their fill with the 1DX. Say goodbye to it, but if they're paying attention, they know that more of the world is moving mirrorless. Even though Canon owns the camera industry, the digital camera industry still belongs to Canon. But then by the time maybe when the next Olympics come out, they'll release their R1 before then, which makes traditional sense. That's when they'll release something like an R1, which is probably a big, rough body, reliable battery grip already coming in on that mirrorless camera with incredible video specs, incredible photography specs. You'll have at least probably 30 to 40 frames per second raw, and with an incredibly high resolution. And it's just going to blow specs out of the water. But they're doing it slowly. And again, that's me speculating, but it seems to make sense, at least with what's going on. Anyway, we've got the announcement that's 5 minutes away. If you're going to watch the live broadcast, if you want to watch it without me talking all over it, which I'm probably not going to talk too much all over, I'm going to watch it with you guys and then occasionally share my expressions. You can definitely watch it with me, or I've also left the link down below if you want to just kind of just watch it yourself without having me here. But if you're going to have me here, then thank you, and I appreciate you for sticking around. And we've got some people watching with me right now. I'm excited for this product launch. When it's like a minute away, I think I'm going to unmute it and then prepare for it so that we can all start watching together, which is exciting. It's super exciting. Anyway, if you've got any comments or questions, definitely leave it up. But as this product launches, I'm anticipating that they're probably going to do the lenses first and then maybe the cameras. But I mean, I don't know if there's gonna talk about anything new that we don't already know. But this is exciting because now we're finally seeing brands follow the bandwagon of ditching DSLRs completely. Oh, and we've got a countdown, 3 minutes. I was like, oh god, it's already starting. So this is when Canon, and I've released I'm wearing today just for the excitement, this shirt, that I just ditched my DSLR NX shirt. So that was Samsung's slogan a few years ago, and it's funny that all camera manufacturers are doing the same, ditching their DSLRs. So Nick Christie, can't wait for this. Bring on the R5. Yep, I can't wait. This is something that I've been anticipating for a lot, and I've put out a ton of videos on the R5 and the R6. So it's pretty cool. We've got the almost 2 minute warning. So when it comes to a minute, I'm going to unmute the audio because this had just music audio playing over and over and over again, and I didn't want that to interrupt our conversation. And if you don't hear the audio in about a minute, let me know, because I have no way of monitoring my own audio. So I just depend on you guys to really tell me I can't hear it or it's too low, because I'm going to set it like at a level where you can still hear me and still hear them. But if you get an echo or something happens, let me know, because again, I have no way of checking it. So all right, 1 minute 30 seconds, and I'm curious as to see what will happen. I'm hoping that they have a few surprises, because really, honestly, it's almost like they have no surprises at this point. So all right, Canon R5 R6 virtual product launch coming up to you in about a minute. Now let me unmute this audio and get it started. Give me one moment. Let me know if you hear it coming up, and if you can hear me. If you don't hear me, let me know. Is that okay, guys? I hear it just fine. So I'm hoping you guys hear it too. Virtual product launch seconds away. Nick Christie, so many leaks. I wonder what they've kept a surprise. Probably nothing. But here we go. 5 seconds, people. Get ready to watch. Here we go.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us at this early hour. My name is Tony Kano, and I am the Executive Vice President and General
Quantum
Manager
physics.
of the Imaging Technologies and Communications Group at Canon USA. We have something big news to share with you. But first, I would like to thank you for your support of Canon. I have been with Canon for 36 years, including almost 19 years at Canon USA. Even after all this time, I still get excited when we are about to unveil new products. I think you are really going to like what you see.
I hope
and
so.
I can assure you that we have much more planned for the future. I would also like to talk with you a little about the power of imaging. In recent weeks, we have experienced a number of events, both worldwide and here at home. From the start of COVID-19 pandemic
This is
to the
nice.
protest for racial equality and social justice, images have been captured to help tell the stories of those affected. At Canon, we view the power of imaging as something that can bring people together. The images captured are so impactful and can be used to help us realize our corporate philosophy of Kyosei. All people, regardless of race, religion, or culture, harmoniously living and working together into the future. As a leader in the imaging industry, Canon USA
Gordon
has
Lang
always
just dropped the
felt
600 and
deep
800 millimeter
responsibility
reviews.
to
I
ensuring
guess the
that
embargo must
all
be
members of our
lifted
community feel valued
on the
and
cameras,
empowered to
as
achieve their
expected.
creative visions. Thank you again for your support of Canon. Now,
Thanks for that cam
the
spot.
news you have been waiting to hear.
Here we go. Here we go. Of course, Peter McKinnon. You know, he's had it for a while.
I mean, it's locked on. It looks good. It's like left, right. It won't. Do you see that? It's, oh! So we're shooting on the, hi, by the way. We're shooting on the new Canon. I almost gave it away. The one thing they told me is just intro and then pass it along, dude. Don't just, okay, I'll rewind. What's up, everybody? Peter McKinnon here. I am a filmmaker and photographer from Toronto, Canada. Proudly flying the flag up north, doing my
Knock
part.
my mic
And
over.
if you could, can you grab that? Yeah, fold it. Don't let it hit the ground, okay? It is my pleasure and honor to be able to be here today to welcome you, no matter where you're watching this from, your car, your lunch break, the bathroom, lunch break, wherever you're watching this from.
Yeah.
Get stoked. Get excited because we've been waiting for this day for a long time. A long time, and it's here, and it's spicy. I don't know if you're ready for it. I don't know. So Rita's gonna come in and she's gonna tell you more of the facts. I'm just supposed to pass it off to her. But I've been shooting with Canon my entire professional career, and what is about to unfold is one of, if not the most exciting update since to date. So Rita, before I blow it all, I'm gonna hand it over to Rita Dubé, who's got the longest professional title that I've ever seen. I actually had to write it down on my phone because I was like, what? She's the Senior Director of Customer Experience Marketing for Canon USA.
That's a long
I probably
title.
could have remembered that, but I didn't want to mess it up, Rita, because it's such a good title. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. I don't know how I'm going to follow that intro, but I'm definitely going to give it a try, so here we go. Welcome, everyone. First, let me say that I hope you're all doing well and staying healthy. We are really excited to have you here with us today. Now, Canon has been pretty busy. We've been introducing a lot of exciting things, like the 1DX Mark III camera, the photographer community called Raise that aims to inspire, educate, and also challenge its users, and the new Image Connect photographer matching service that aims to match photographers with potential clients. And both of these services are available to
I
our
have
US
not
customers.
tried Image Connect.
And also we have
like to
our
see
new
that.
cloud platform, Image.Canon, that aims to improve your image workflow. And finally, we can't forget the EOS Webcam Utility Beta software that now has helped turn your EOS camera into a webcam. We've been keeping really busy because we want to provide you solutions
That
and
webcam
also to
utility
keep
is great if
inspiring
you
you
haven't
and
tried it
improving
already.
your workflow. Well, we have some more news for you today. We are finally going to give you the full details that you've been waiting for on the EOS R5 camera. Not only that, we are also going to be giving you a ton of information on new gear, and this includes the EOS R6 camera, the Image ProGraph Pro 300 printer, 4 lenses, 2 extenders, new printer software, as well as paper.
A lot of stuff.
Wow, that's a lot. And we've been waiting a long time to share all of this information with you. And we think it's good, like really good. But now it's time for you to see for yourself, and you can make your own judgment and decide. Now today you will hear the ins and outs about each of these products from our own Canon experts, as well as some professional photographers that we've been working with. And they've had the first dibs on trying to work on these products firsthand. And these include Canon Ambassador Peter McKinnon, Explorer of Light Lindsay Adler, Sal Sincata, Roberto Valenzuela, Vanessa Joy, Joel Grimes, as well
Peter
as Rick
McKinnon
Salmon,
got
who
his
have all
own.
gotten first exclusive access
And
to
then the
using
others.
these products and putting them to the test. And we can't wait to show you what they've created. Now, let's kick it off with Canon Tech Advisor Drew McCallum and the EOS R5 camera.
Don't you love the
Thanks, Rita.
teasing,
Hello, and
teasing,
once again,
teasing
welcome
before
to my
anything?
home office here in New York.
It
Back
happens.
in April, we dropped some information about the upcoming EOS R5.
Here we
It was
go.
mostly about the video features of the camera. Well, I'm here today to tell you as much as I can about the EOS R5 and to provide first-hand reports from some of our creators who've had a chance to work with the camera and lenses you'll hear about. With the introduction of these two cameras today, we're giving image makers and videographers some options to choose from to create their work. I know there's many questions as to why 2 different cameras. Do you need the highest performing Canon mirrorless camera for your work every day? Or are you a content creator, enthusiast, or advanced amateur who needs high quality and functions, but at a lower price point? I know there's been a lot of discussion and debate on the resolution of the EOS R5. So to put that discussion into overdrive, the EOS R5 will have a brand new, Canon designed and manufactured 45 megapixel
45
CMOS sensor.
megapixels. That's what we thought.
This new sensor will offer incredible image detail and expanded dynamic range. Paired with the DigicX image processor that was first introduced with the EOS 1DX Mark III, this camera will have incredible processing power, capable of shooting at 12 frames per second mechanical and 20 frames per second silent shutter, including autofocus and auto exposure. This camera will feel at home in portrait and fashion studios.
So
out in
they
the
said
field for
including
landscapes, wildlife,
autofocus.
and nature,
So that's pretty
or the
good.
press rooms
12
of our nation's
frames per
capital.
second with
We've
autofocus.
also pushed the boundaries for viewfinder
real good.
use. With 100% viewfinder coverage with 1,053 automatic autofocus zones, so no matter where your subject is in the viewfinder, you will not be limited in your compositional creativity. Combine this with face, eye, and head detection, similar to what you see in the live view shooting of the EOS 1DX Mark III for people, and now including eye, face, and body tracking for dogs, cats, and birds. Having faith your subject is in focus has never been easier. With these features and more, we wanted to see in the real world what this camera was capable of. So we gave the camera to a few photographers to see what they could do. As a special treat to you all watching, you're about to be the first to see an exclusive video captured with the EOS R5, done by vlogger, content creator, and coffee aficionado with over 4.5 million subscribers on his
Coffee
YouTube channel,
aficionado.
Peter McKinnon.
That's nice. Move my mouse out of the way.
When you hear the word artist, you might think of a painter, a museum, fancy degree. When I hear the word artist, I think of my friends, the local restaurant owner, a little kid sitting under a blanket with a flashlight dreaming of the stars. An artist isn't bound by the restrictions of society. An artist doesn't see the world in straight lines. An artist finds comfort in the unknown. A place where we can express our most inner feelings through our works without bounds. A limitless expression of freedom.
Just watching this. He's always been great with like these
Some
like
use cards,
B-roll
some
shots.
use notes. Some use endurance, some use precision. but we're all ultimately arriving at the same place. A place where titles and hierarchies disappear, and we're only left with what we love, our passion to create.
It would take much longer than I have in this segment to cover all the additions and features of the EOS R5, so let's speak to a couple of our photographers who have had the chance to work with the Canon EOS R5. Fashion photographer and Canon Explorer of Light, Lindsay Adler, and portrait and wedding guru and Canon
Is there
Explorer of Light,
anything
Sal
more about the
Sacato.
R5 to
Welcome
talk
to
about?
you both. I'm so glad to have you here
We
virtually.
got the
So welcome,
photography features. We've
Thanks for
got
having
the
us.
Thanks for having us.
video features.
Lindsay, you
Now,
did some
what are its
behind the scenes of your
limitations? Is my
session.
curiosity.
Let's take a quick look at that short clip.
And I'm curious on the R6 too. It's funny that Canon put out the video features first and kept the photography features
Sal,
pretty
you shoot
limited
stills
when
and
it came
video
to
for your
their
client. So let's take a quick look
press
at the segment
releases.
from your shoot.
Now, this is all marketing for the most part, what you're hearing. These are not reviews, so don't think that they're just going to say how perfect this camera is without any of its flaws, which I'd be curious more when it comes to camera flaws than I am with everything that does well, because that can really make or break whether you'd want to buy a camera or not. I'm going to get it, and when I get my hands on the R5, I'll let you know my opinion, at least from a video creator's perspective, and photographer too.
So, Lindsay, you were one of the first to use the EOS R 2 years ago, and you had a chance to work with the R5 recently. And tell me, what were your first impressions as you unboxed the camera, started working with it in your studio?
Well, so to be honest, I felt like a little camera photo nerd. It was so exciting because as I started to play with it, I realized it was the best of every world, like all the things I was excited about. Fundamentally, I was like, wait, this feels and functions like a 5D4. Oh, wait, but it has the mirrorless elements of the R. Oh, wait, it has all these other great things. So it was just like, thank you guys, this is what we wanted. The other thing that was fantastic was that when I put it to my eye for the first portrait, the way that with the eye tracking, the face tracking and eye detection, it was like lightning fast. I'd never really experienced anything like that before, so it got me thrilled.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. We've really upped a lot of the features and functions that the customers requested. They said, we want this, we want this, we want this. This camera is a true 5 lineage, so if it carries that moniker, it's going to have to work in the way that you and Lindsay need it to work every day. It's a workhorse. It's going to really be that powerhouse to be that one camera in your studio that you use all the time for just about every type of gig that you have thrown in front of you, whether it's video or stills. I mean, it's got to be versatile. So,
I think versatile is the right word, though, right? If you're doing any kind of work today, there's always a video element to it, right? Whether it's social media and stories, and so to have a camera like this that really can, in a switch, go from high performance stills to high performance video. That is a tool in my arsenal that I think is going to allow me to stand out from my competitors. When you have more resolution, you can adjust more with your images. You can now punch into those images as needed without losing resolution. And then in the post-production workflow, look, we're all touching our images. We're not shooting film. These images are going to go into some sort of post-production workflow. And more importantly,
You
as a
can't
wedding
say
photographer,
Lightroom,
I'm
but
trying
you
to
know
sell
he means
large
Lightroom.
portraits to my clients. I want to put that 30 by 40 or larger on the wall.
Let me know if
I
you use
need that
Canon's
resolution
photo
to sell
editing
large print,
software.
so I would rather have it than not.
right,
Nobody?
there's always that pixels
Okay.
per head, pixels per face. So you have a big group, a bridal portrait or a wedding party itself. That's a lot of people in a file that you want to have everybody tack sharp. That dress, the shoes, the tux, everything's got to be sharp, especially in those big groups, right?
Well, I do want to say something about groups. Any wedding or portrait or family portrait photographer can probably relate to this statement. I have yet in my career to take a frame with 5 kids in it, 3 kids and 2 parents, or a wedding bridal party where everyone is looking at the camera. And if you're the person who's doing it, please come teach me how to do it, because it's like chasing squirrels, right? I mean, you just cannot get them there. And so there is that element of compositing that happens after events like this. And I, again, need those pixels so that these images don't fall apart on us.
Very cool. Yeah, it's
No,
it's
the
gonna be a lot of
5DS and the
resolution for some to handle, but at the
5DSR
same
were
time, it's
higher
gonna be one of those places that
resolution
people,
cameras
they need it. It's just there.
that
It's
Canon
so, like I said,
released. So
versatile,
this
and that's
is
why- that's
not
why
as
it's there.
high,
That's what
but
it's there for. You've always got
it
options
comes
like
the closest to
C-RAW
the
and smaller,
5DS or
functionality, smaller
5DSR
JPEGs. Those are always there, but
from
when you
Canon
need it, you got
when
the
it
power
comes to
behind you.
resolution at
So-
45
But Drew,
megapixels.
we
Now
shouldn't
we've-
underestimate the speed of the camera. I think that's important to understand. You know, in the past, and even on some models that are on the market today, the larger file size is writing slower. And I did not experience on our shoot, and when people see that video, they're going to see like we're moving, we've got action, we're throwing a veil. We did not run into performance problems with the camera. So I think kudos to Canon, did an incredible job of making sure that the buffer, the memory, you know, the read-write is happening at a speed that's keeping pace with a working Pro. With the R5 now, I'm not seeing that lag. So the speed of the EVF was made me very, very happy.
Lindsay, how about you? What are your top 3?
I'd be curious as to what the buffer speed is.
Well, I want to start by building off of what Sal just said about it changing the way you shoot. So I don't know if other photographers are like me, but I used to be terrified of shooting at 1.2. 1.2 is such a tiny, narrow depth of field that when it was a paid job, there's no way I was going to risk it. And the other day, just for the heck of it, I said, I'm only going to shoot wide open. I had the RF85 1.2 at 1.2 the whole time. And the camera changed the way I can shoot. I can confidently shoot wide open and know that I'm nailing the shots because of the face tracking and eye detection, right? Then after that, I would say also related to focus would be the 100% autofocus coverage from side to side, because very often I am shooting unusual compositions, or I have my subject moving around. I want that flexibility.
That's why
and I love
mirrorless
that no
took
longer
over the
is focus and
autofocus game
recompose a thing.
to
Like,
get
I
the
don't
whole
think I
sensor
ever
to be able to
mastered
focus.
that whole idea.
No one did. No one did.
Yeah. And so the fact that it's gone, man, I'm jealous for the future generations of photographers that never have to suffer through that. So
Right.
You don't know what it's like to take a blurry picture.
they won't. You're totally right. They won't have to suffer through that. And then I think the third thing, I guess it's kind of a spec, but just the fact that the camera accomplishes so many things in one. So the fact that it has so many video capabilities, because I'm going to be using this camera sometimes to direct. There's a lot of times where in a commercial shoot, I'm actually shooting stills and I'm directing little pieces. Maybe it's going to be for a web ad, maybe it's going to be for just a little piece on social. But I can also use the camera for things like I can do right now, like recording myself for tutorials. So
Right.
I just loved that, yeah, for my job, all the important parts of what I need out of a still camera are there, but I don't need something extra in another camera to achieve what I need out of video. I will say, when I got the camera, the first thing I did was check to see how much Canon listened. So I go, okay, let's see. Oh, yep, dual card slots. Okay, everyone's going to be happy. And then I went to the back and I'm like, oh, yep, joystick, got it back. Everyone's going to be happy. So that was one of the first things I did, pick up the camera, and I was like, Canon listened, they care. So that was
Yeah,
a good
the
one.
EOS R had a touch bar
Yeah,
and
it's the
didn't
little
have a
things that are big
joystick,
things.
and that was
So,
a
Lindsay,
pain
any
for
closing
many
comments or thoughts or
creators.
things that you think we didn't get to that you want to really make sure that Lindsay's voice is heard?
Yeah, well, no, I was going to mention that one of the things I didn't bring up was the in-body stabilization. You know, there's a few lenses that I use very often that do not have stabilization built in. And when I was actually shooting for the first time, I was shooting this burlesque scene. It was meant to be old Hollywood. And as I was shooting it, I was thinking, you know, old Hollywood usually had really narrow depths of field. And I was using strobes at the time. And I was like, you know, it doesn't seem right. I should probably use these as hot lights like it would be in old Hollywood. So I switched off my strobes, And I was shooting narrow depths of field, but even then, my modeling lights weren't that strong. And so it ended up being, I was shooting, I think I was at a 1/6 of a second. And I was like, oh man, okay, maybe, should I pop up in my ISO? Maybe I should go higher. And then I was tethered and I'm looking, I'm like, nope, they're sharp, I don't need to. So it was really nice to see that in action in a practical situation, because usually people think just bump up the ISO, but it wasn't necessary. The shot that I'm talking about in particular, the one that it was just crazy milky backgrounds at like a 1/6 of a second, was with the 8512, the RF 8512.
Nice. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you get, especially on the fine art side, because, following Lindsay on Instagram is pretty insane. How
Again,
about you, Sal?
most of
Any
this is like,
last
okay,
little,
experience, but
comments or thoughts or things that you really want to get across
us
to
spec nerds,
people that are taking a look
myself
or thinking about
especially,
the
I
R5?
just want to see, okay,
Yeah,
what don't we
if
know?
you're a wedding or portrait
It's
photographer
all
and you're on the fence
nice,
at all about this
but
camera,
marketing.
if it's right for you, I'm telling you, we've bet our entire business on this platform. So as an active wedding and portrait photographer, we are using this in our business, and I could not be happier. The tech is what moved me to mirrorless.
Awesome. Well, I know you guys have a lot
They
going
cut
on
him
right
off.
now, and so I'll let you get back to your extremely busy days.
They're like,
And
okay,
I can't wait to
we're
see
done here.
more of what you guys do with your content and your videos that we're going to be pushing out over the next couple of weeks. Thank you both for being here. I appreciate it. We'll be seeing a lot of photos and videos and behind-the-scenes footage from our EOLs at work with the new EOS R5. So make sure you go to our website after this broadcast to see those amazing pieces. We'll be showcasing how the new EOS R5's features,
let's
such
see
as
here,
IBIS with up
specs.
to 8 stops of correction, animal eye and body autofocus, the return of the joystick, and other requested changes.
A
So
lot we
keep an eye
know
open for those
about
articles and videos. Now, the EOS R5 is not just an
Wi-Fi,
incredible stills camera. We wanted to make sure today's
in-body image
photographers,
stabilization up to
videographers are
8
able to
stops. I
integrate
thought
this
it was up to
small
5
full-frame
stops. That's
camera into their
interesting.
creative outlets, be it high-end stills or video.
120 frames per second refresh rates on the
Who
EVF.
has to create not just
which
impressive
is
stills
real
for his
smooth.
high-end customers, but cinema-like production video for commercials and corporate use. Here's a quick teaser of the video he shot for us with the new EOS R5.
Another R5 video.
I've been waiting for a camera like this. Honestly, I was blown away when I heard the specs. Right out of the gate, the R5 has 8K full-frame RAW recording.
You saw the video
And
menu.
it can shoot 4K,
Click.
up to 120 frames per second, full frame. Beautiful stuff, okay. We are moving on to the barbell. This is a shoot that demanded high dynamic range camera. It's a shoot where a lot of cameras could fail.
That we
The R5 is giving us a new level of ability to work with light, to work with emotion. in a
how many
handheld
stops
sized
at
body.
dynamic range?
I think it'd be easiest since we've got our fill here. The R5 is the first Canon camera to have in-body stabilization. This to me is a game changer. Makes my skills as a cinematographer look better. On this shoot, I found myself stripping down a lot of the accessories and just being able to hand hold it. Super cool, I mean, it's handheld. For both video and stills mode, the sensor has a dual pixel autofocus. I found I could tap right on the touchscreen of the R5 for face and eye tracking. And then as I recompose the shot, it's tracking right onto his eye. It is up to speed with the best autofocus cameras out there. Let's go to stills. Okay. Get right at the camera here. In stills mode, the R5 has a 45 megapixel sensor. And it shoots 20 frames per second with a silent electronic shutter. Perfect, perfect, thank you. The R5 has fully won me over to a mirrorless system.
I know there's so many more features to discuss and to show you, but unfortunately my time is up. Right now, I'd like to pass it over to my friend and
Time
colleague,
is up.
technical specialist Brandon Chin.
Thanks, Drew, and hello, everyone. The EOS R5 is truly a revolutionary new product that will impress all different types of image makers.
Technical
If you're one of those
specialist.
people that crave high performance, but you might
And
be on a
now the
budget,
R6.
we at Canon, we hear you. So I'm excited to introduce to all of you and the world the EOS R6. This is a completely reborn 6 Series product with our latest and greatest technologies inside. If you've ever dreamt about owning an EOS R5 or an EOS 1DX Mark III for that matter, this full-frame body sports Canon DNA from both of those outstanding cameras. If you're an EOS R owner, well, this camera also realizes much of the feedback that we've learned firsthand from your fellow EOS R owners to bring high-performance imaging capability, advanced feature set, and outstanding control to the advanced creator. This creates a powerful lineup of EOS R series cameras to match our already
EOS
impressive
RA.
RF and EF series
That's
optics.
right.
With the EOS R6, you'll find a 20
keep
million
forgetting
pixel
about that
full-frame
camera.
image sensor, as well as a DigX processor. This is the same image processor and base image sensor combination
As the 1DX
that
Mark
is
III.
featured in our flagship EOS 1DX Mark III
That's
camera.
what was rumored.
So this means outstanding high-performance imaging fit for nearly all genres of photography. But here's the kicker. The EOS R6 features Canon's new in-body image stabilizer. This is the same one that can be found in the EOS R5. And this is for use with both non-stabilized and optically image-stabilized lenses. With this sensor and processor combination, the EOS R6 is truly a hot rod capable of frame rates of up to 20 frames per second in silent shutter mode and 12 frames per second in mechanical shutter mode. So regardless of what type of photography
Pretty close
you do,
to the 1DX
this
Mark
means
III.
speed, stealth, and versatility to get your shots when they matter the absolute most.
So they both
We
have
didn't
the
stop there.
same
Working
frames per
image
second.
maker requires consistent and reliable autofocus. And the EOS R6 features the same autofocus system as the EOS R5. The most powerful dual pixel CMOS autofocus system to date. Dual pixel CMOS autofocus 2.
Let's
This
give
new
that a
system
brand name,
with 100%
Autofocus 2.
coverage brings consistent and new compositional control to your fingertips. With 1,053 automatic selection autofocus zones that
pretty
work
good.
with an improved eye detection autofocus algorithm and head detection autofocus adopted from the EOS 1DX Mark III. If
So
you
it does have
photograph
eye
people at all,
detect.
you should know that dual pixel CMOS autofocus just got that much better. We've even added Canon's newest autofocus method, animal detection autofocus, with the ability to focus on a body, face, or eye of dogs, cats, or even birds.
Which is
Vloggers and
pretty
video creators,
useful.
we did not forget about you. If you've been looking for a UHD 4K capable camera, the EOS R6 has it, with up to 60 frames per second recording. It also has full HD recording at up to 120 frames per second, and features beautiful dual pixel CMOS autofocus 2 available in all recording modes, making EOS R6 comfortable in all different types of recording scenarios. Beyond the in-body image stabilizer, it also has 10-bit Canon log and zebras, making it a very capable and high-performance video machine. Those of you that requested advanced features for the next EOS R, we listened. Features such as dual UHS-2 SD card slots are now available for more peace of mind and better workflow. There's now more control than ever with a multi-controller joystick and dual quick control dials. When adding these dual quick control dials to the main dial near the shutter button and either a control ring or a control ring mount adapter, this will give you 4 total controls at your fingertips.
That's
And
pretty
to top it
convenient,
all off,
actually.
there's a beautiful, high-resolution OLED electronic viewfinder with 120 frames per second refresh rate, meaning the EOS R6 is ready for your next project. Now, since we only have a short amount of time available to chat about the EOS R6, the last thing we want to do is read off a spec sheet that you can easily find on our website. Instead, to help me explain the feature set of this amazing EOS R6, we have 2 special guests from our Explorer of Light team. My friends, please join me in welcoming the amazing and talented Vanessa Joy and Roberto
I do like to
Valenzuela.
be able to switch
So
the
welcome,
ISO
Vanessa
and shutter
Roberto.
speed
Thank you so much for joining
without
us.
having to
So
dive
how
into
excited
menus.
are
So
you
I
to
do
talk
like that
this
about the
new EOS
R6.
Very, very. I feel like it's been the best kept secret for a long time, and I just can't wait to get it out.
It's definitely been like a juicy secret out there. Everyone on YouTube is trying to figure out what's happening with this R6, and it's been really fun not only having it in my hands, but also photographing the whole campaign and seeing how revolutionary this camera really is.
All right, everyone, you just heard a ton of speeds and feeds. Let's talk about what really matters to 2 of our greatest pros on our Explorer Light team. So as fast as you can, what are your top 3 favorite things about the EOS R6?
I'm stealing this first because I bet you Roberto is going to have similar favorite things. But one of mine is just how versatile it is. You know, everyone needs a camera that does everything these days. So I was able to shoot this camera as a hobbyist, as a professional, as a mom, as a streamer, as a YouTuber. So just that you can do so much with it. Secondly, would be the price. The price is pretty accessible for a lot of people, and to have this much power for that,
Pretty acceptable.
power for that buck is just wonderful. And then lastly, I'd have to say the autofocus. The autofocus, it has 100% changed the way that I take pictures for the better.
First of all, the controls are extremely familiar to all of us. Coming from the 5D
No
series,
problem, Chris
having
King.
that aperture wheel
Mikey's
back and the multi-controller and everything
watching
that
it
just,
too. He's
where
like doing
everything is, and we
backflips
have
right
this
now.
muscle memory that we are very used to. We want to
sure
make sure
he'll
that
have
we
an
continue
update.
with that. And this camera finally brought back everything we used to have, and it's been such a joy using it. Like Vanessa said, the autofocus is just nothing short than remarkable, incredible, jaw-dropping. It's incredible for videos, incredible for photos. It's great for professionals, great for an amateur. It's great. The price point, like Vanessa said, is very, very nice. It's very accessible in that package. I mean, this camera is pretty amazing.
Well, Roberto, you've been on our EOL team for a number of years. You're one of the first people that had access and got to play around with our new EOS R when it first debuted. Let's have a look at your video that you produced with the EOS R6.
This time, Canon really knocked it out of the park with the release of the Canon EOS R6. You have the perfect combination of everything you love about the 5D series, but they combined it with everything you love about mirrorless technology.
Thanks, Chris. Mikey will appreciate that. Now the R6 is tiny. Weight matters when it comes to actually taking photos or video for a long time. So from a video creation standpoint, to have a light camera that's so powerful is really nice.
For all of our viewers out there,
without limitations.
Roberto, what's actually hanging behind you?
Well, the camera is 20 megapixels, the R6. The R5 is 45, but the R6 is 20. So I decided to show people, since I'm a big advocate of printing, I wanted to show everybody looking at this press conference that this is a 30 by 46 or something like that inch photograph that I printed on my Canon Pro 4000, and I just taped it to this existing frame that I had, just to show you the detail on this print at 20 megapixels. This is like life-size photo. This is a life-size photograph printed on the Pro 4000, and you can see every cloth, every time. You can see the texture of the clothing she's wearing is stacked sharp. Actually, it's probably the biggest one in my studio now, and it was shot with a 20 megapixel camera, so I wouldn't let that get to your head at all.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing with our viewers. Now,
of course,
when you look at the EOS R6, it shares the same processor, DigicX processor, and same base image sensor design as what you can find in our EOS 1DX Mark III. So for all of our viewers out there, Vanessa Joy is easily
Makes you
the
wonder,
biggest
why did you buy the
1DX
1DX Mark III?
Vanessa, what did you think about the image
Almost
quality
like,
from the EOS R6?
oh my gosh, why?
1DX Mark III?
You know, knowing that the same sensor and processor was in now this mirrorless camera, one, I think we all sort of knew that hybrid that the 1DX3 was a little bit of foreshadowing of what was coming, but working with the same sensor and processor in now a smaller camera, lightweight camera, mirrorless camera, it gave me confidence in knowing what to expect, and then also knowing that it was able to work with really high ISOs. So I'm a wedding photographer. I'm photographing in churches that are super dark, have red carpet, nothing but stained glass windows, lighting, whatever is going on, and I'm not allowed to use flash. So now I can be confident in, you know, that sensor, that high ISO capability. I was pushing this camera to.
I'm curious to know if you watch this video later or now,
no problem
would you,
whatsoever,
if you had the money, would you even consider buying a 1DX Mark III now?
Totally fine.
With these two new cameras coming out, and if so, why? And definitely hit that like button if you haven't already, if you are enjoying this.
So for our viewers
video.
out there, Vanessa has been keeping herself very busy during all this lockdown. Let's cue up your video, give everybody a bit of a glimpse of what you've been doing.
I'm wondering, when did these creators do these videos? How long have they had the camera? Because a lot of us have been indoors, and a lot of these videos that they show here seem to be distance for most people, but
You've been getting really
it's,
familiar with the
you
EOS
know,
R6.
with what
You've
we're
shot some
going through, it's
photos,
pretty
you've shot some amazing
tough
video
to
content.
to
Talk
do
to
a
me
lot of
and our
this
viewers about the
and be out there.
mixed media versatility of this new camera and what some of our video creators will actually be able to expect.
When I first got the camera, that was one of the things that hit me. It's like, wow, there's a lot of video in here. And I knew not only was there a lot of video capability, but photo as well. I wanted to run this camera through the ringer. So I had it in the hands of travel vloggers and, you know, behind the scenes on shoots and moms and my kid, and having it track my kid while shooting video or photo. It, you know, does them both very seamlessly, which is a great benefit for someone like me who does shoot both photo and video. It passed like all the tests, and I know Roberto can attest to this too, because he has a 2.5-year-old also, and this camera can keep up with that crazy child running around, eye focus right there, and being able to work with both photo and video that quickly is remarkable.
Now, segueing a little bit, the EOS R6 features our new in-body image stabilizer. Roberto, I know you shoot a lot with the 28-70. Vanessa is one
I
of the
really
biggest
wonder
advocates
how
of prime
good
lenses.
that
Every time I've ever
IBIS
seen
will
her,
be
she's
when
got a
it
prime
comes to
lens.
video. That's
Tell
one of
me
my
your thoughts on this,
curious
'cause
things,
this
and I
is
want to compare it
really
with the
revolutionary
GH5 too,
new
so
feature
that's
for a lot of
definitely a
people.
must.
What's really exciting is that some of the most useful lenses in our arsenal can actually achieve 8 stops of image stabilization. So you could shoot at very low shutter speeds and be perfectly stable. For example, the 24-105 f4, 8 stops of image stabilization. The 28-70 f2, 8 stops. These are some of the most useful lenses that we have, and we have that ability to stabilize, you know, low shutter speed. Sometimes we work in low light. Sometimes we work in conditions that require us to be super steady. We don't have to worry about that anymore. This cameras really free you up to be able to be rest assured, trust the technology, and take your photographs. So I'm just really pumped up about this IBIS technology they put on the cameras.
So I do shoot some video. I don't
8
shoot a ton
stops
of
of
it, but anytime I do shoot,
stabilization.
the
I'm
one thing
assuming
I
that's
hate
lens
more than anything about
and
video
sensor
is having to put
combined.
my camera on a
Without the
tripod or a
lens, I'm
monopod.
thinking it's
I
5
hate
stops,
it.
but
I shoot very fast.
could be
I
wrong.
move around,
Not too
and
sure.
having sticks is like, you know, practically chaining me to my camera and in my spot. So, you know, the in-body image stabilization allows me to more freely just handhold the camera, or, you know, lean against a wall or put my elbows on something. So now it's definitely much more pleasant shooting video when I don't have to be on sticks.
Yeah, and this is a really amazing system, very user-friendly. When you think about
Thanks,
it,
Chris.
longer
That's what I
focal lengths
thought.
really
It's
benefit
combined.
from built-in optical image stabilization. The wider lenses really will benefit from having the in-body image stabilization. So both these new systems of in-body image stabilizer will actually work complementary to each other. There's certain times where you'll have more of a ratio one way or the other way, but having both in your toolbox, if you will, is going to help a lot of photographers and cinematographers, videographers, go and really make new content that's going to be high image quality and obviously beautiful, unchaining them, as Vanessa said. Well, I want to take the time to thank both Roberto and Vanessa for joining us today. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for the EOS R6 and the input side of Canon. So to keep the new products coming your direction, I'm going to introduce my good friend and technical advisor, Mr. Jim Booth, to talk to you about the output side. So
I want to
take it
review
away,
the
Jim.
actual specs, probably in a later video, like
Thanks,
with the
Brandon.
whole spec sheet.
Wow, how about those new cameras?
A little bit later.
I know that everyone is
So
excited.
now we're
going
going
to
go into
and create
printers
stunning
and all
images
that other
with
stuff
the
from
EOS R5 or
Canon.
R6. But remember, an image is not a photo till it's printed. Today, we are happy to announce we are adding to our line of Image ProGraph Pro Series printers with the launch of the 13-inch
I want to see what the
Image
lenses
ProGraph
are,
Pro 300.
and they'll probably have that
Continuing
next, which
to deliver
we
output
kind of know
solutions
already,
for
but
creative
still want to see the
professionals
lenses.
who are equally obsessed with the printed image. The Pro 300 is the newest printer in the Image ProGraph Pro Series lineup to deliver on that promise. Let's go over some key features of the printer, and later we'll speak with Canon Explorer of Light, Joel Grimes, so that he can share his thoughts after he had some hands-on experience with the printer. The new Pro 300 uses a 9-color plus chroma optimizer Lucia Pro ink set. When compared to the current Pro 10 Lucia ink, it offers an expanded color gamut and enhanced black density, which are both vital elements for creative production. This model utilizes a new matte black ink with higher density than that found in the Pro 1000 and Pro 10.
Thanks, Chris. As soon as this is done, I'm going to look at those specs and see if there's any surprises.
The new Image ProGraph Pro 300
give you my
comes equipped
initial
with technologies
thoughts
to help eliminate
after
some common printing
this video. So
First,
probably
the
in a
skew
couple
correction,
days.
which is a built-in mechanism that straightens the paper fed diagonally from the top tray or the manual feed tray. This helps reduce printing errors by ensuring accurate feeding, especially on thicker media. Another is the nozzle recovery system. Ink nozzles are carefully checked by sensors. If a clog is detected in one nozzle, others will automatically compensate for it. This works to prevent print failures due to banding and reduces the need for head cleanings. We have also improved media compatibility by adding panorama paper sizes, which Angelica will talk to you about in a little bit, and longer user-defined sizes. You can now create custom paper sizes up to 39 inches, extended from the Pro 10's maximum of 26.6 inches. With a 3-inch LCD, USB, Ethernet, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connectivity, complementing all of the other features I've already shared with you, I'm confident that this printer will deliver the results you've come to expect from Canon. But don't take my word for it. Let's hear what Canon Explorer of Light Joel Grimes has to say about this new Pro 300. Thanks for taking some time with us today, Joel. You and I had the pleasure to work a couple of years ago on the Pro 1000
This guy's the guy
launch,
who
and now
got
we're
to use
adding
the
the Pro
printer.
300 to that lineup
Not
of
that
printers.
printers aren't
Can you
exciting,
tell me a little
but
bit about what you've
like
seen
imagine all your
and,
friends
how
got
you
the
compare
R5,
quality,
R6, and you
usability?
got the printer.
Well, the first thing I do is
Darn.
I
Hopefully
see
he got
how
to
easy
use
it
the
is to set
R5
up,
or R6
because
too.
we're not all technically, I guess, engineer-minded. And the 300 was actually really easy to set up. You go through the steps. It actually, on the screen itself, on the printer, it tells you what steps to do. Got that all set up. And I always make a black and white image first off a printer, because if it goes and gets me the continuous tones that I really like in black and white, then I know I've got a good printer. And that was here's the first image that I made of one of my cowboys that I just did recently, and it looks absolutely stunning.
Anything else about the usability or the quality that you would want to call out?
That's sort of like, okay, step number one. Then I start working on the color, and
This is obviously
here's
unscripted,
some
which I
absolutely
like.
stunning, beautiful prints that I did
more natural.
of more cowboys. And so I just look at the, the tonal range and the detail. I feel like a little kid in a candy store every time a print comes off the printer. And so that's what I live for. I live for seeing my work in print. To me, I still feel like the print is the ultimate statement that I can make as an artist. So that's what every time I think about it, an image that I'm creating, I ask myself a question. Would I hang this on my wall? Now, not every picture you're going to hang on your wall, but that's my goal. And so if I do get a picture that I love and I make it in print form and I put it in a frame and I hang it on my wall, that's a huge statement.
How do you think photographers can leverage print to increase their bottom line? Obviously, a lot of photographers are sole proprietors and run their own business. Do you think that there's a way that they can include print to make more money?
Yeah, I had a guy come up to me after I gave a lecture, and he said, "I want to shake your hand." And I said, "Oh, yeah, okay, sure." He said, "You've made me a lot of money." And I said, "I have? Do I get a cut on that?" And we kind of joking, and he said, "Look, I've been a photographer." He was about my age, so, young guy. But he said, "Look, I do senior high school portraits. I've been doing it for years. I have 5 photographers that are on my, work for me on my staff, and we do a pretty good job." And he said, "I saw one of your composites, and of the sports with an athlete with a stadium background," and he said, "That is what I want to do." And my photographer said, "What are you doing? That's going to take way too much time, and we can't recoup the the time back and make the money on it. He said, no, I want to do this. So he did it. And so the first time he had a mom and the son come in to look at the proofs, all mounted on an easel. And at the time he said, our most expensive package that we were offering was $1,200. And he said, just by chance, I thought, I'm going to put a $2,400 price tag on that one print just to see what would happen. And he said the mother walked out with that print. There is a power in the emotional side of seeing a print, and it is profitable for your business. So I always tell people, the investment you make on a printer will return 100-fold, if not more.
Excellent. Well, Joel, we definitely appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us and talk a little bit about printing and the new Image ProGraph Pro 300. So thanks again.
All right, Jim. Thank you.
Next up is Senior Marketing Specialist Angelica Lee to share more details about the printing workflow.
Thanks,
More
Jim.
printer stuff.
Now that you've captured amazing images with the
So
EOS
exciting.
R5 and the EOS R6 and have the Image ProGraph Pro 300 ready to go, it's time to print. And you just heard from Jim and Joel that there's nothing to fear. It's never been easier to bring your images to life with the Canon Professional Print and Layout Software, PPL for short. An essential part of the Image ProGraph professional photo output workflow, Canon specifically designed PPL utilizing our input to output expertise. The result is a printing solution that gives photographers a way to make great prints easily and efficiently. PPL simplifies the printing workflow so you can spend more time focusing on your art and less on print settings. With PPL, you can create beautiful lab quality prints right in your own studio with consistent results you can repeat over and over again. You also won't skip a beat with PPL as it integrates seamlessly into your existing photo workflows. You can use it as a standalone application or an export module plugin out of your favorite image editing software. PPL's intuitive interface
They
organizes
gave
all the
Lightroom
important
and
print
Photoshop
functions in
some
one
credit.
space, including an at-a-glance print preview and complete print settings area, making it simple to produce prints exactly as you envisioned. We could spend hours diving into all the great printing functions in PPL, but here are some highlights for today. See and control what is in your final print with a large print preview. You can adjust the size, crop, and color of your image and see how it'll look on the final paper size. Enjoy flexible output with 3 layout modes: single image with choice of border or borderless, multiple images on a page, and gallery wrap with split image handling. With powerful yet simple to use color handling, you can easily apply an ICC printer profile under color management, or for monochrome prints, select black and white photo mode for a higher level of precision and greater subtlety. You can then use pattern print under color settings to view adjustments in a single print, so you can visually select what looks best and input the color adjustments for the perfect black and white print. Then save your custom settings so it's even easier to print exactly what you want every time. Canon photographers can also take full advantage of Canon's own input to output data to reproduce the finest details with DP raw print and create one-shot HDR prints with HDR printing. With Canon Professional Print and Layout, turn your captured images into amazing tangible prints. From input to output,
Chris,
Canon
yeah,
has the solutions
this printer
to ensure
looks
that
good,
you
but
get
you
stunning
definitely
image
camera.
quality
Again,
every
I'm
step of
waiting
the
for the
way.
lenses.
Now, just as
But,
important
you know,
as your printer
having a
and
nice
image
printer
are to
is
the
also
quality
important
and
too.
impact of your final print,
I'm not a
is the
printer
paper.
expert, to be
Over
totally
the years,
honest.
Canon has carefully crafted a collection of the most common and frequently used paper surfaces, while also working with popular paper manufacturers to optimize color profiles so customers can continue to use niche and specialty papers on our printers. We're now further expanding the Canon paper line so that photographers can create works on media that best fits the photography, making images even more impactful in print. Our latest fine art paper in our collection has a smooth surface, so we wanted to complement that with a rough surface for more texture. So today, we're excited to introduce the newest paper finish to a professional photo paper lineup, Premium Fine Art Rough. A high-quality cotton paper suitable for long-term storage, Premium Fine Art Rough has a lovely rough surface texture, which is perfect for adding a 3-dimensional depth or an art painting effect to your images. And as always, with the combination of Canon genuine paper and ink, you'll get the Canon level quality you expect in your final print. Now, from the final printed image, let's go back to where we capture the light. I'd like to pass it over to Canon Technical Advisor Rudy Winston to introduce the newest glass to join our extensive lens lineup, and also hear from our Canon EOL.
Finally, here come the lenses, which we kind of knew about, but
Thanks,
let's see if
Angelica, and
anything
hi, everyone.
interesting.
I'm Rudy Winston, a
I
technical
like this
advisor
guy too.
at Canon USA. The Canon RF lens line has established itself from its beginnings as a showcase of outstanding optical technologies with renowned lenses that are a rock-solid foundation for demanding professional photographers and videographers. But Canon continues to broaden the RF lens line with innovative and exciting lenses that are within reach of many enthusiast photographers as well as professionals. That continues today as we introduce 3 new Canon RF lenses with super telephoto capability. The Canon RF 100 to 500 millimeter f4.5 to 7.1
This lens seems like one that I would want to pick
similar in
up.
concept and optical
The 100 to
performance to the
500.
outstanding EF 100 to 400 millimeter L lens. This lens now zooms to 500 millimeter, entering that threshold of
Though I'm
super
not a
telephoto
fan of the
power
fact
for
that it
subjects
goes
like
down to
wildlife, nature, and
7.1,
sports.
which
This
is
totally new
that
optical
new
design
standard,
is nearly half a
even
pound
lower
lighter
aperture.
than the 100 to 400 millimeter
Not
lens as
something
well.
that I'm a fan of.
AF is powered by 2 nano USM focus motors, which are extremely fast during still image shooting, yet silent and smooth during video recording. It has up to 5 stops of optical image stabilization, works with the new RF 1.4 times and 2 times tele-extenders, and accepts 77 millimeter filters. This new 100 to 500 millimeter L series lens brings super telephoto power to the Canon RF lens series in a practical, hand-holdable package with professional sharpness, strength, and weather resistance. Until now, super telephoto photography has been out of reach for many Canon customers, and even for those who can afford the cost of entry. Issues like size, weight, and portability remained obstacles for many photographers. Canon now introduces a totally new concept. Incredibly lightweight 600 millimeter and 800 millimeter lenses designed for hand holding at unbelievably affordable prices. It's my pleasure to introduce the RF 600 millimeter F11
so
IS STM
it's going
and
to
the RF 800 millimeter
outdoors
F11
only,
IS
obviously.
STM lenses. Their telephoto power can change the look of your photography and video. These are f11 lenses with a fixed f11 aperture. They're of course designed for outdoor shooting in daylight and utilizing the high ISO capabilities of today's full-frame cameras in less than ideal conditions. But the trade-off is handling ease you must experience to believe. The 600 millimeter lens remarkably weighs less than the Canon RF 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8 zoom lens, and about the same as an EF 85 millimeter f1.4L lens. And the 800 millimeter lens weighs 2.8 pounds, less than the EF version of Canon's famous 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8L lens. Both have built-in optical image stabilization and will autofocus with any EOS R series camera. Remarkably, both accept
good.
Canon's new RF tele-extenders, and the EOS R6 and R5 cameras will autofocus with either extender in place. Birds, wildlife, distant landscapes, outdoor sports, and other applications calling for the visual power of super telephoto lenses may have seemed beyond reach until now. As I said, the RF 600mm and 800mm lenses are a new concept in autofocus lenses, opening the door to imagery with impact and providing yet another reason for photographers to consider the Canon EOS R system. Let's talk to Canon Explorer of Light, Rick Salmon, who's had a chance to shoot with these lenses.
I would
Rick,
actually like
really
to see what
appreciate you
Tony
spending a few
Northrup
minutes with
could
us
do
today
with
to
these
talk about your experience with these
longer
lenses.
lenses, because he
Which
does usually
lenses did
like
you
bird
work
photography.
with?
Him and
I work with the
Chelsea.
600mm, the 800mm, and here the 100 to 500mm, and all were totally awesome.
Oh, that's
I
terrific.
heard the
How
prices
did
on
that
these
extra
lenses
100
are actually
millimeters,
pretty good
going to
too,
500
which is
millimeter,
nice.
change the way you were able to approach photographing a small subject like birds?
Well, that's the thing. The smaller the subject, the closer you have to get. So that extra 100 millimeters really makes a lot. You know, I was playing around also with the 1.4x converter and the 2x converter. But for my backyard bird photography, the 500 millimeter focal length, it was totally fine.
Mm-hmm. Terrific, terrific. Rick, speaking of dialing long distance with telephoto, you had a chance to work with the new 600 millimeter and 800 millimeter image stabilized lenses.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about your experience working with these lenses. How was the handling, first off? How was the image quality? And in general, what was the experience like?
Well, I think the image quality speaks for itself. You know, I'm making like, on my printer over here, I'm making 17 by 22 inch prints. It's amazing. And when it comes to bird photography, if you could see every feather, I mean, it's amazing the image quality, and that you could handhold these again for a long time.
Rick, you put together a sample video of some of your work.
Yep.
How about if we take a look at that right now?
Sounds great to me.
Okay,
Okay,
I mentioned
what
I'd
we're
like
gonna do
that
is we're
guy.
going to start with my list of the top features I like about the camera that I feel will help you make better pictures. Okay, number one, focus tracking. Focus tracking helps you get sharp images of subjects that, get this, are even coming toward you. What's more, you can set the focus tracking on this camera to track people or animals. Setting the focus tracking to animals helped me get this amazing shot of this owl flying directly toward me. How cool is that?
That's really excellent, Rick. Rick, one of the things about these two new
I
lenses,
love those
the 600
videos
millimeter
too.
and 800 millimeter, are that they are fixed aperture lenses, not just fixed focal length, but fixed aperture at f11. How did you work with that in the situations that you shot with?
Well, Rudy, the first time I heard about it, I said, you know, F11, that's it? Well, it's kind of like, you know, I play piano. And, you know, I have a grand piano with 88 keys, right? You could do a lot of stuff there, Mozart, Beethoven, you know, they could do a lot of things with 88 keys, but I also have an electric piano with 73 keys, and Beethoven and Mozart, and we can still make great music. So you have to accept that you have that fixed aperture. And what I do is I boost the ISO in low light conditions. And again, the image sensor on the R6 handles the noise so well, I'm shooting at ISO 10,000 and getting really cool shots.
Rick, that's great. I want to thank you so much for being a
I'm
part
curious
of this
on
project,
the R5 and R6 what
for
the
helping
ISO
us
performance
tell the
is,
customers about these lenses as we introduce
and how much
them to the
noise, how much
marketplace.
it's progressed.
And I want to
The
thank you for
1DX
spending
Mark
time
III
with
was
us
pretty
today.
good,
Really
so I'm
appreciate it.
curious
Look
as to
forward
what
to
the
talking to you
R5
again
and
soon.
R6 will
Okay,
do
I'll
with
catch you
ISO
later.
performance.
Up next is my colleague, Canon Technical Advisor Eric Stoner, to share one more lens with you.
All right, thanks Rudy and Rick. That's some amazing insight into the new super telephoto lenses. Now, introducing the RF 85mm f2 macro IS STM lens. And like its sibling, the RF 35mm
That's a small lens.
8 IS STM lens, but different focal length. They both share the concept of an affordable fast aperture prime lens with half macro capability. The 85mm medium telephoto focal length has long been a favorite of photographers shooting portraits, weddings, studio, and fashion, allowing the photographer to remain fairly close to their subject for easy communication, yet fulfilling the look achieved by using a telephoto lens. The bright f2 aperture not only lets ample light into the sensor, but also renders those creamy backgrounds desired by photographers when shooting at wider apertures.
Creamy background.
In addition, specular highlights in the background are rendered beautifully thanks to the 9-blade circular aperture. Tie that in with super spectra coatings to help reduce flare, and you have all the tools for making sharp, amazing images. Now, even with a fast f2 aperture, this lens features up to 5 stops of image stabilization, making it a go-to choice for photographers shooting in low light conditions. Personally, I can't wait to get my hands on this paired with the new EOS R5 and R6 cameras using IBIS or in-body image stabilization because of the combined effect of both of these types of stabilization. Certainly, one feature I know most photographers will appreciate is the lens's macro focusing ability. This lens delivers tack-sharp images, and I mean tack-sharp images, with close focusing down to 1.15 feet, or half life size. That makes it an extremely versatile tool for photographing small details, no matter what your subject is. In closing, I know in today's world, photographers are looking to lighten their load, and weighing in at 1.1 pounds, they'll appreciate the compact size and weight of this great performing, cost-effective lens, satisfying the needs of amateur photographers all the way through to the working professional. Thanks for watching, and now to wrap this up, I'm going to toss it back to my coworker, Rita Dubé. Rita?
Thank you, Eric, so much.
Pretty
Now,
much
everyone, we are so
concluding.
happy you were able to join us today. But are you still looking for more information? Why don't you join us tonight when the Canon Creator Lab and the Socality are hosting a live panel discussion featuring
There
a
you
group
go.
of photographers and Canon professional market specialist, Hanara Arroyo. You can submit your questions online and get them answered. Now, to register, visit the link in the description below. And for more information on all the new products that were announced today, please visit this URL. Now, we
Definitely
hope you are
go
as
there to
excited
see the
as we are to
specs.
get back in the field and start creating. Thank you.
So that's it. Pretty cool. I didn't see too much revealed that we didn't already know. There were some things that we did, but some things that we didn't. But for the most part, we knew what was going on. I'd also like to thank you for joining me this early in the morning to watch this whole presentation. It was fun experiencing it, not alone, but also with you guys. Special thanks to everyone who commented on the live stream, including Chris King, Dave Wakerly, Cam Spotter, Nick Christie, everyone who just watched with me. That means a lot. And I'll have a video up reviewing the specs shortly and more videos. Definitely subscribe and hit that like button if you enjoyed this live stream. And as always, you can make my day if you haven't subscribed, but you do subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. I gotta fix that ending. I'm a little choppy sometimes, but thanks, guys.